Hi, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Books and Beaches. So I am cutting this one a little close to the end of the month, but I always like to put these videos out before the new month starts. But it is time to talk about all of the books coming out in the month of October this year. So I feel like as we get closer to the end of the year, book releases start to slow down just a little bit. Because I feel like spring, summer is more the heavy time that we see a lot of releases, but October still has some really great books coming out. And I feel like this is the beginning of kind of the holiday season, because they start pushing out a lot of like the holiday, especially, romantic holiday book releases. So the beginning of the month is really heavy with releases and it kind of dwindles as we go down, but still lots of great books to talk about. And that ding reminded me I should probably turn the sound off on my computer so you don't hear all my emails dinging through. But our very first release date in October is October 7th. And like I said, this date is by far like the heaviest when it comes to all the different dates. But per usual, I have my computer over here. Because like I will say it probably many times, it's so hard for me to remember all of these. But let's just jump right in. So, first one coming out on October 7th is probably a highly anticipated book for a lot of people, and that is Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which I believe I want to say it's in like a sequel to an anticipated companion novel to Bride. I have only tried to read, I believe, one Ali Hazelwood. It wasn't for me, but I don't want to read too much into this one just because it is the companion book. I'm assuming that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to read Bride, but it says a human hybrid and an alpha claw against the bonds of fate. So I don't want to read too much into it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone else here, but if you are interested in it, I'll have it linked below, as I will with all the others as well. Next up, we have Alchemy of Secrets, and this is by Stephanie Garber. I believe this one was an early book of the month pick, which is kind of cool. And this says it is the hotly anticipated adult debut. I love it, good debut. She was the author of Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart. So this is going to be a contemporary fantasy kicking off a brand new series, which is kind of cool. And it says it starts with a class in an old movie theater. Ooh, I like that. It's going to be Folklore 517. And it's the class Local Legends and Urban Myths taught by a woman called the Professor. All right. It says a lot of people, believe your stories are fiction, but there's a lot, or some people that are convinced the magic is real. And so, let's see. I don't even want to read too much into this one. I think it's a lot about like, who can you trust, who's telling the truth, those sorts of things. So I'm going to try to keep these as short and sweet as I can, because like I said, I am cutting this pretty close to the beginning of October, and I want you to be able to hear about all the good ones. So a next highly anticipated novel for myself, just because I really like this author, and I think a lot of other people do too, and that is The Intruder by Frida McFadden. I feel like she's publishing at least like one book a year, if not more, which is always fun. And the edition on Amazon right now, it has the sprayed edges, and as you all have heard me talk about, I love good sprayed edges this year. And this says, it's catching me by the first line: a dark and stormy night, an isolated cabin in the woods, a runaway child with a mysterious past. That's a quote by Jason Rekulak. And it says, there's someone at your front door. Should you let them in? Find out in this new riveting novel. So I'm not going to read too much more, but I love a good Frida. They're definitely popcorn thrillers to me, and they're typically always like a 3-star and above. So looking forward to that one. After that, I feel like I've talked about this author before. Now I can't remember if I've read anything by them, but this is The Women of Wild Hill, and this is by Kirsten Miller, I believe, or Kirsten. And it says it's going to be a witty, spectacular, and timely tale of modern-day witches waging war on the patriarchy. Ooh, interesting. Oh yes, she wrote The Change and Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. I think I have that one on my Kindle, and I think I have The Change on my Kindle as well, but I haven't read them yet. So it looks like they have been brought to this wild hill to discover their family legacy. And I'm wondering if this is going to be some type of fantasy, because it says, the old one, furious at the path mankind has taken, has chosen 3 powerful witches to turn the tide. The Duncans, who I'm assuming are these 3 sisters, or 3 women, will fulfill their destinies, but only if they can set aside their grievances and come together as a family. So, could be an interesting one, but I'm thinking a little bit more of, fantasy on that one. Another author that is very well known and very loved by myself, at least, is Mitch Albom, and this is Twice. So it says, what if you got to do everything in your life twice? Question mark. It says it's a stunning love story that dares to explore how our unchecked desires might mean losing what we've had all along. Oh, that one's interesting. And his books have really made me think. There's only a few that I haven't read, but ones that really stick with my mind were The 5 People You Meet in Heaven and the follow-up to that one, which of course I can't think of right now. But I do really enjoy, his novels that are going to make me think. So looking forward to that one for sure. After that, we have Dear New York, and this is by Brandon Stanton. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, it's a love letter to the streets, stories, and souls of the heart of the city and its people. So, a book all about New York. And I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, it's stories and pictures. Yes. Okay. So it says, with more than 75% of photographs and stories, they have never been published before. So it's going to be kind of a mix of both. So what I thought, just what an interesting, concept topic. I have never been to New York before. I've been to the state, not the city. So I had to add that one to the list, especially because it's just so different than a lot of books that I normally talk about. After that, another author that I do quite enjoy, although this one I think is going to be slightly different than what I'm used to, and this is Dating After the End of the World by Geneva Rose. Now, I think this one is a little bit more like sci-fi than her typical, thrillers that she's written. And I believe if you are an Amazon Prime member, this was offered as one of like the free first picks. But it says there's nothing like the undead to bring the living together in an action-packed and apocalyptically romantic, genre-shattering novel. So yeah, I definitely think it's different for her. And we saw her speak last year, and I want to say when she was talking about this, when she said it's very different for her. But yeah, nothing wrong with different. We'll see how that one turns out. After that, we have a book by an author that I hear talked about a lot. I don't think I've ever read anything by them, but this is Sharp Force, and this is by Patricia Cornwell. This is book 29 in the K. Scribd series. So I am assuming this is like, let's see, K. Scribd is supposedly looking to not be the next person killed by the serial killer. I'm trying to find the best way to talk about this. Oh, and she is the medical examiner. So don't want to read too much into it because clearly it is very deep in the series. But if you are interested, it says this series, Scribd, is a soon-to-be streaming series starring Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis. So if you are, really into this book series, there's going to be a TV show series as well. So that's pretty cool. After that, we have an adult debut again, so 2 on this release date, and this is Overdue by Stephanie Perkins. So, she wrote, I wish I knew what she'd written before, but let's see. It says, the question it reads here is it time to renew love or start a new chapter? Interesting concept. So it says it's going to be a beautiful, slow burn romance full of lust and longing, about new beginnings and finding your way. So I love a good, like, short, sweet intro to that. I'm assuming if it's full of lust, it could be a little bit spicy, but could be one that you might be interested in checking out. I'm trying to think if she wrote, I'm assuming these were mostly YA that she wrote before. So this will be her adult debut. All right, after that, one that I believe is historical fiction, and this is The Hong Kong Widow, and this is by another Kirsten Lesh, I'm going to say. It's going to be set in Hong Kong in 1953. It says, in a remote mansion, witnesses insist a massacre took place. The police see nothing but pristine rooms and declare it's a collective hallucination. Interesting. Until decades later, when one witness returns, and yeah, we're kind of left, I think, wondering, what is that one witness going to present? So, ooh, and talks about even the ghosts of her past are waiting for her there. So that one definitely caught my eye. I love throwing in something different like that with all of the thrillers that I read. So there's that one. Our first, what I'm presuming is more of a holiday release on this list, and this is Snow-Kissed by Rayanne Thane, I believe. And it says, she will capture your heart with beautiful, touching stories. And it says, 'tis the season for a little white lie. Ooh, fun. So it says, we have a single mom, but this is her favorite time of year. And then, the male main character just wants to be free this holiday season. So it looks like they're going to be making a deal. He'll be her date if she helps him give someone a true Christmas to remember. So maybe a little bit of fake dating. We all know where that one might go, but a great start to, our holiday releases. And then last but certainly not least, coming out on October 7th is Last Rites. And this is actually by Ozzy Osbourne. Now, I'm assuming he wrote or, helped write most of this prior to his passing. But they've got a great quote here. It says, "People say to me, if you could do it all again, knowing what you know now, would you change anything?" And in true Ozzy fashion, he says, "I'm like, F no. If I'd been clean and sober, I wouldn't be Ozzy. If I'd done normal, sensible things, I wouldn't be Ozzy." So, we're getting what I am assuming is maybe slightly autobiographical, slightly biographical now as it comes out. But it says it's going to be brutally honest and surprisingly life-affirming. And it demonstrates why Ozzy has transcended his status as the godfather of metal and the prince of darkness to become a modern-day folk hero and national treasure. So if you were a fan of Ozzy or his music, that one might be for you. But those are all the books that I found coming out on October 7th. All right, the next release date in October is October 14th. And like I said, the first release date was kind of our jam-packed one. The rest of these are shorter and sweeter, but still some great books. So the first of which is one that caught my eye by one of the authors, and this is Gone Before Goodbye. This is by Harlan Coben and Reese Witherspoon. Now, if you didn't know, Reese Witherspoon is one of my favorite actresses. Sweet Home Alabama is my all-time favorite movie, and so I haven't read all of the books that she necessarily has in her book club, but this one caught my eye because she is a co-author. So it says this is going to be an unforgettable suspense novel that combines the storytelling talents of Academy Award-winning actor Reese Witherspoon and internationally best-selling author Harlan Coben, whom I've actually never read anything by. It says this is a story of a woman trapped in a deadly conspiracy where uncovering the truth could cost her everything. So I actually don't want to know too much more. I do like going into my mysteries and thrillers not knowing a lot. I feel like I say that every one of these videos. But especially this one, I am just super curious and looking forward to picking it up. So I will clearly have it linked down below if you want to check more about that one out. After that, another book by an author that I tend to really like. actually have a whole shelf over here full of his books. And this is Remain by Nicholas Sparks, pairing up with M. Night Shyamalan, I believe. I am probably pronouncing that one wrong, but he co-authored this one. I believe he's really well known for either his movies or his TV shows that he's produced. So it says this is going to be a one-of-a-kind novel with the supernatural mysteries of life, death, and human connection. So even just slightly different than our typical Nicholas Sparks, which sometimes I end up liking. But it says it's an unprecedented collaboration between, an author of the best-selling love stories that we know, and the renowned writer and director of blockbuster thrillers, like The Sixth Sense. Okay, so I have seen some of his stuff, I just didn't realize that was the name behind it. So this is going to be, let's see, it's a story about the power of transcendent emotion. It asks us all, can love set us free, not only from our greatest sorrows, but even from the boundaries of life and death? So quite an interesting take. I think, definitely different for Nicholas Sparks. So I'll be really curious to see where this one goes, and it'll probably have to join, my Nicholas Sparks collection. So there's that. After that, another book, which I actually found out about because I am part of the educators ALC, so advanced listening copies at Libro FM, there we go. And this was one of the options for educators that could choose this month, and this is Bog Queen by Anna North. And it says, it is a monumental discovery, will set off a clash of worlds, past and present, over the fate of the land that holds us. So let's see. One of the first sentences, when a body is found, it looks like we're going to work with an anthropologist, and they need to investigate, but it's not like anything they've ever seen. Though its bones prove it was buried more than 200,000 years ago, it is almost completely preserved. So quite an interesting take. And yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot about kind of whichever area they find this in, and it goes from there. So just an interesting take, and we shall see. All right, after that, another, holiday release by a very well-known author, and this is Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal, and this is by Megan Quinn. Now, this does say it is book 2 of 2 in How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, which I believe was her last year's release, or holiday release, and so let's see, this one says it's a brand new holiday rom-com with all of the humor and heat her fans enjoy. So yes, she is usually, a spicy author, but it says nothing says I love you like trespassing, public humiliation, and a town-wide Christmas spectacle to win your crush back. How fun. So I'm not sure if any of these are the same characters that she had in her holiday release last year, but I think there is going to be, some hijinks that ensue. So if you are interested in a Megan Quinn, holiday release, this one will be for you. And then last but certainly not least, coming out on October 14th is The Haunting of Payne's Hollow. And this is by Kelly Armstrong. Now, I have read some books by Kelly Armstrong before. I believe they were more YA focused, but definitely on the thriller horror side of things. If I'm remembering one of her books correctly, it was quite interesting. But this says it's going to be a nail-biting supernatural horror, which is kind of what I remember about her previous book that I read, about a haunted lakeside property and twisted family secrets. So when we're talking about, some of those more YA-ish books, it's usually around there. And what a perfect time because, October kind of, in my opinion, starts, the spooky months. And so let's just see. There's a lot of things she's going to hear and see, maybe crawling from the water, and the waves of the lake promise something unspeakably dark lurking just below the surface. So, plenty creepy. I am sure this will be very perfect for this season, but that is all of the books, or I should say those are all of the books that I found coming out on October 14th. All right, so our next release in October is October 21st. Short and sweet again, but does not mean the books mean any less. The first of which being a book that I believe a lot of fans of Lindsay Little Library and Sarah's Nightstand, they do their book list Thursday. This was the sequel to one of their book club books, and this is The Things Gods Break, which is book number 2 in what she calls the Crucible series by Abigail Owen. And I believe book number 1, if I can remember the name right, is The Games Gods Play. So I did not get a chance to do the read along when Lindsay and Sarah did it because my hold from the library just never came in, but I definitely should pick it up at some point because I think everybody really liked it. I don't want to say too much about this one just because it is book 2 and it is considered a sequel, but it does say the gods want her dead, Hades will bury them. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have already read this book, if you read it with Lindsay and Sarah or just read it on your own, feel free to check out the link below to see more about this one. But like I said, I know a lot of them are going to be really looking forward to that one. After that, a book, once again, that is a little bit different than a lot of the books I talk about, but this one is The Land of Sweet Forever. And this is by Harper Lee with help, or the introduction is by Casey Sepp. This is a collection of stories and essays. So it says, from one of America's most beloved authors, a post-humanist collection of newly discovered short stories and previously published essays and magazine pieces, offering a fresh perspective on the remarkable literary mind of Harper Lee. So, you know, a lot of things that we may have not seen before, plus some things that they were, but, you know, putting them into this collection. So if you are a fan of Harper Lee, like a lot of people are, this one might be for you. After that, we have another very well and respected author. This is The Widow by John Grisham. So I feel like I read a lot of John Grisham in high school. I was in like a John Grisham and James Patterson like mystery thriller phase. But this says he is back with his first ever whodunit book. Ooh, even more suspenseful than his courtroom dramas. And this is going to be a small-time lawyer is accused of murder, and he races to find the real killer to clear his name. So if you have liked John Grisham in the past, this is, you know, a little bit of a different thing than what he usually writes, but I think the enjoyment level will probably be the same. So I will have that one linked below. And then last but certainly not least, coming out on October 21st is Girl Dinner, and this is by Olivia Blake. And it says, this will be a darkly fun novel about power, lust, and eating your fill as wealthy moms and sorority girls practice a sinister new wellness trend. Interesting. All right, it says, good girls deserve a treat. It says, every member of the house, the most exclusive sorority on campus, and all of its alumni are beautiful, high-achieving, and universally respected. Interesting. So I think we're going to have a main character who is a sophomore in college and a professor who is also struggling to return. And so they're going to kind of look into the rituals of this sorority, this sisterhood, and they will learn that living well comes with bloody costs. Kind of right up my alley. So, and it says when they are finally invited to the table, they will have to decide just how much they can stomach in the name of solidarity and power. Now I'm definitely curious. So those are all the books that I found coming out on October 21st. So our final release date in October is October 28th. And the first book that I found is The Black Wolf, and this is by Louise Penny. Now, this is book 20 so far of the Chief Inspector Gamache series. So I have a feeling this is another series where you could probably read this one, but if you haven't read like the other ones, you might not know the backstory about this inspector. But it says, somewhere out there in the darkness, a black wolf is feeding. Sorry, I have to make sure I was reading that correctly. So we have this inspector that has, you know, been pictured in a lot of different places. Let's see. And I'm wondering, well, no, it seems to be pretty like straightforward. I didn't know if there was some sort of like fantastical element. If there is in some of these, please correct me below. I'm wondering if we are based in Canada. And it says, in a dry and parched land where there is no water. Interesting. And so it says, from the apparent peace of his little village, Gamache, or Gamache, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, finds himself playing a lethal game of cat and mouse with an invisible foe who is gathering forces and preparing to strike. So if you are a fan of Louise Penny or you are a fan of this series, that one is coming out for you. After that, we have a book that I have heard a lot about, this author's other book, which this is Wreck by Catherine Newman. Now, I heard a lot about the first book, Sandwich. This is being called, I think, like kind of a sequel. I don't necessarily think they're calling it a sequel, but it says it is based on like characters from Sandwich and like continuing their story. So maybe not necessarily the sequel, but you know, bringing the characters together. So it says this will be full of laughter and heart about family, marriage, and what happens when life doesn't go as planned. So I think we're seeing, you know, characters from the first book, and we will explore the hidden rules of family, the heavy weight of uncertainty, and the gnarly fact that people, no matter how much you love them, are all not exactly who you want them to be. So more, you know, exploring a lot of different, probably tough topics in that one. So I'll have that one linked below. After that, we have The Everlasting, and this is by Alex E. Harrow. And lots of deluxe editions out here on Amazon. I love it. This is going to be a moving and genre-defying quest about the Lady Knight whose legend built a nation, and the cowardly historian sent back through time to make sure she plays her part, even if it breaks his heart. So a little historical, maybe a little fantasy with the whole time travel aspect. So I don't believe I've ever read anything by this author. The cover definitely caught my attention just with, you know, the design that it has. But it says, the story always ends the same way. If they want to rewrite this legend, if they want to tell a different story, they have to rewrite history itself. So definitely curious about that one. And then last, but certainly not least, out of all of the books I found coming in October, it is Final Cut by Olivia Worley. I believe I have read something by her before, or at least mentioned it here. And this is going to be set on the low budget, the book is set on the set of a low budget slasher film, and it is going to turn into a real life horror movie in this twistedly wicked blend of Scream meets the reappearance of Rachel Price from Olivia Worley. So I haven't read the reappearance of Rachel Price quite yet, not by Olivia Worley, and now I can't remember who it's by. Oh, Holly Jackson. I know I'd remember it eventually. But looks like we have characters maybe based just outside of high school. Body counts are going to rise. Reality is going to blur with fiction. And we need to try to find the killer before a real life final girl happens, or before the killer flips the script and makes her the next victim. So definitely caught my eye. But those are all the books that I found coming out in the month of October. Let me know if there are any others that you know of. Like I said, October seems to be a little bit of a smaller month when it comes to releases, and we kind of tend to see that as the year kind of finalizes out, but there may be other books out there. So if you know about them, let us know in the comments. If you don't have any others that you want to mention, let me know either maybe what one out of this list you are most looking forward to, or feel free to just leave me the stack of books emoji to let me know you were here. Just love seeing those, and they definitely help my channel out so much, and I appreciate you all. But as always, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.